Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for a comic book spoiler review. This one, I've been meaning to dive back into this universe, the Noir, Marvel Noir universe. It's a fun universe to dive into, and uh, as much as I love the 2099, well, real future slash alternate universe, they never really landed on what's what. I think most comic book readers would prefer the Marvel 2099 runs to be like the definitive Marvel future. Despite certain hiccups with certain comic lines being bad to so, with only a couple of exceptions of being like really good, like Spider-Man 2099. And I think people say Doctor Doom 2099 is really good. Haven't really read that, but there's quite a few 2099 comics that I want to check out because I only done Spider-Man 2099 comic review in my earliest days of reviewing comics for this channel. Speaking of which, before we get into this review, please follow me in the links in the description below, like my new TikTok that I just started, tiktok.com slash at talkative Carl, my Instagram, my Twitter, Patreon if you want to just at the dollar amount monetarily support the channel with, you know, ideas for certain topics or reviews that you want me to do. My Twitch, so you know whenever I'm live, you can follow me there, as well as check out my YouTube channel as well. Links are in the description below. Anyway, so like I said, like I want to dive into these alternate Marvel universes, but more specifically, like the Ultimate Universe, which the old Ultimate Universe, and as well as the current run of the new Ultimate Universe they just building with Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Spider-Man, which for right now, Ultimate Black Panther and Spider-Man are really solid, but I'm still warming up to Ultimate X-Men. It's not terrible, but I don't know. We're following Armor, the little Japanese girl here, who only just meeting up with what appears to be Aurora, that universe's Aurora Monroe, but she seemed more, like a Japanese version of her. I'm not sure. It's like it's kind of like a slow build with that. What's going on with that? That's probably why I'm like a little like with it. Not terrible, but one day I will, once one of the runs are finished, I'll do a review on that and give you my take on this universe. But in terms of the old Marvel Ultimate Universe, right after this, I will begin into Ultimate X-Men, like the original Ultimate line of X-Men. Uh, but anyway, what we talk about now is X-Men Noir. Now, I already covered Luke Cage Noir and Spider-Man Noir, which is up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, if you want to check out my review on those. Now, I enjoyed Spider-Man Noir. Luke Cage Noir, it's like, it's fine. As I remember it, it didn't, the way it ended seems, I don't know, I wasn't thrilled with how it ended because it left slightly confusing, but whatever, it didn't rise to the same level as Spider-Man Noir. I think maybe because they put more energy into Spider-Man Noir, because Spider-Man is so profitable of a name, of an IP, same way as like Batman would be. But at that time, Luke Cage wasn't really getting much love as he would be as of right now, or even going as far back as when the Luke Cage Netflix show was popping. And that would have been like a right time to like get into, well, because like there's some solid Luke Cage stories going on right now, at least in the past couple of years, I should say, especially with like Heroes for Hire kind of deal. But man, you know, since with they going backward to the Ultimate line, they should, and then also with like 2099, they more focusing, hyper focusing on Spider-Man 2099 right now, but while they're getting some love for the Ultimate line right now, Marvel, comics, the company should really like, okay, let's dive into more stories involving other people from 2099 and actually get some solid writers to like make some good stories with certain characters of the future, to build it out, because they're too hyper focused on Spider-Man right now. I like Miguel O'Hara, but it's like he shouldn't be like the only thing y'all hang your hat on right now. You got like a wide array of possibilities, just like you're doing with the new Ultimate line. And here with Noir, you have a wide array of possibilities with here, because who doesn't love the whole classic, noir genre? There's always those are always fun. Uh, because you ever watch a noir movie? It's fun. It's the whole aesthetic, and it's only those rare occasions when like the whole black and white thing, you know, gives you that immersion that works for that particular genre. Um, so we got X-Men Noir, and I also want to point out, uh, I wouldn't say it's grisly, but it definitely has some adult moments here, which I think fits in this kind of world aesthetic. Not like you can't pull certain things off in like Ultimate or uh the 299 space, but it just seems you can like get away with certain things here than you can do with like the main line or anything like that. Uh, so just to give you like a little backdrop, uh, we're gonna be focusing on like for right now, like the just like in the main line back in the day, like the original core members of Xavier's team, which is like Cyclops, uh, Jean, Beast, Iceman, uh, uh, Warren Worthington the third, uh, as like the originals. So here, Xavier is a psychiatrist, a discredited psychiatrist who runs uh, the Xavier School for Exceptionally Wayward Youth in 1937, where he takes in juvenile delinquents, and instead of reforming them, he trained them in various criminal talents due to his belief that sociopathy was in fact the next state of human behavioral evolution. This caused him to get an expulsion from the American Psychological Association, and he was sent to Rikers Island. Uh, when the truth came out of what he was doing. So this is a little backdrop here of how this universe is X, and there's no hyphen. It's X-Men, just X-Men, which I know sounds not too that much difference, but they made a point to write it that way. So we meet up with the new rookie on the team, which is always like a standard in terms of detective or gumshoe or noir type of crime dramas, where we meet a young Pietro or Peter Magnus, who is the new cop on the beat or new detective on the beat, and he's partnered with a uh, veteran, Fred Dukes, and they pulled a body from the waters, uh, and it turns out to be a young woman who was identified to be Jean Grey, and also has, you know, there's like you can tell, she's part of the Xavier's, at least the X-Men team, because each one of them has an X, insignia uh, on their person at somewhere on them. Hers is like on her clothes, or is like branded on her or something. And so she's found with claw marks and face gashed out. So uh Pietro's not like, he's throwing up. He's like not used to seeing something that grisly, especially on his first day as a detective. And so you get a little more kind of cliche, kind of like training day kind of situation where Fred is showing him the ropes, like what's really how things really are, as a cop. And for lack of a better word, Fred is obviously a crooked cop. And in this in this particular universe, many of the cops, as I went over with my review for uh, Spider-Man Noir, there's tons of crooked, not tons, but like a fair amount of crooked police officers. And Fred belongs to, at least there's a group of cops who are, at least a small group will call them, who call themselves the Brotherhood. You'll see why soon. And uh sorry, I'm just checking something. I feel like the slides are like, don't fool around with me. Oh no, I got it right. Oh, I must have just skipped thing, or at least chose something else. Oh, okay, nothing wrong. Okay, we meet up with various characters that you are familiar with, like Remy LeBeau, who runs a club called the Creo Club. And every once in a while, you get these little flashbacks uh, uh, to the point of view of the vigilante slash detective named Tommy Holloway. And we'll get around to that, but I just want to bring that up here. You'll see certain, flashback moments with certain characters in prisons. Anyway, he's trying to get information on the situation with Jean Grey. So, once he leaves the club, he sees Remy's bodyguard, Lucas Bishop, trying to essentially, beat up or, manhandle Wanda Maximoff. But Tommy made short work of him. And so these two starting like, even though this is supposed to be Remy's girl, he's like, putting the moves on her, and she's like obviously feeling it. But then you see later on that uh, Tommy meets up with Xavier in Rikers Island under the guise of being a Daily Bugle reporter, trying to get information about uh, Jean Grey once he's about, which uh, uh, I just got to recall how this conversation went. Sorry. Uh, he, basically like, what are the X-Men? What is, like, it's kind of funny how like they kind of took the name after you, because they seemingly still active, even though he's in prison. They're still making certain moves, uh, and he wants to find them because they're under suspicion that the cops think they killed one of their own, and he doesn't think so. So he wants to find them, but uh, he can't say too much here, given the fact that he's in prison. So he hands him like a little magazine about like Boulevard Trash and his little kind of sci-fi ish type of story about Sentinels. Like it's almost like those pulp uh, moments where it's like, during like the crap, the 50s or the space age type of stories that, you know, was like going to the moon and everything like that, and like the mystery of space, and finding aliens, and like the swashbuckling hero fighting off aliens and save the girl and things like very Star Trekky kind of thing. And that's what the magazine kind of looks like on the cover, where it's like this group of heroes, saving humanity from uh, well, just weirdos or something like that, and they name themselves the Sentinels. I thought it was kind of funny, but Xavier sneakily, that's not a word, but you know what I mean, written down the words Anna Marie Rackham. The last name is just thrown in there, but Anna Marie Rogue. Gotta find Rogue, who was once part of Xavier's Wayward Children. So, trying to give him like a lead to go on to help find the X-Men and try to find out who killed Jean Grey, who's the real perpetrator. Now, I want to make a point here. Now, as I read, there's only 4 issues. As I read through uh, uh, this 4-issue mini, I love this, like I said, the black and white aesthetic, and with certain moments of color, like certain brownish kind of tones. But here you get little pieces of color. Like once you meet Cyclops, clearly he has to have the red glasses, and you see Iceman. They only did it like a couple of times, but they stopped after a period, which I thought was a mistake, because he speaks in like a in speech bubbles, has like a blue border to it, because it makes them distinct, because the X-Men are typically very colorful. Now, given the Noir universe, like when I read like Spider-Man Noir and Luke Cage Noir, there's barely any kind of color, which I think is important in this kind of aesthetic. Here I don't mind it with like a few moments of color just to distinguish the X-Men in a particular way. But almost halfway through or getting towards like the final issue, you get like broad daylight with everything is kind of like colorized here and there. And like personally, I'm bothered by that. I don't want any color in my Noir like universe. It's just me because it kind of breaks the aesthetic personally. Now, the only splashes of color, typically like in Luke Cage or Spider-Man is marking like shades of brown or something like that, just like muted colors at most. But by and large, it should be black and white and gray. Here is all right with the red glasses, just distinguish certain features, or just very muted colors. But that's it. I don't want to see like or when you see some daylight, it's still like it shouldn't be too bright. It shouldn't be that bright. It should be bright enough where you still got the best of both worlds. Matter of fact, Spider Noir had moments, and as well as Luke Cage, as I recall, has moments of sunshine, but it didn't. It still didn't break away from the aesthetic somehow, because it's like you can just tell. It's just the way like the artist rendering. Here is just like I don't know what happened in the last issue. It's like it doesn't like have it the entire book, but there's a few pages that are set in the daylight and it's like crazy with color here and there, and it's like I did not care for it. You'll see soon, but I thought I'd bring it up here. It's like they kind of took me out in the last issue. So Dukes takes Pietro to meet his father. You see here Eric Magnus, who is the chief of police, beating up Black Tom Cassidy, who is like a gangster pushing in on their territory. And you later know that because Magnus is chief of police, he managed to pull strings just to get Peter, on put in as a detective 3 years sooner than most other cops, because he excelled at school and marksmanship and everything like that. And so people kind of gave him crap because he, had that kind of pull. It's nepotism, essentially. But Pietro sees the fact that, oh my God, like my father is a crooked cop, and he's the leader of these brotherhood, obviously. And I see that this purple suit. I like the fact that, like I said, here you can tell the color, but it's still muted enough where it still blends in with the black and white. So it, like you gotta have like at least just to make them distinct, show the color but mute it down. But he's so shocked he runs from the basement where he's seeing his father beating on a man, clearly breaking the law. So his whole reality is kind of like shattered, thinking like, oh, because he wanted to be a cop like his dad, obviously, and he wants to do right, but his whole, I guess, kind of shattered his illusionment of how cops operate. That this, I guess, such a thing as crooked cops, and his father is a part of that. And I also want to note that there's moments here that people comment on how fast Pietro is. It's like he's able to dodge certain things like in quick reflexes, and as they mentioned, like he run up the stairs like pretty doggone fast. And well, I might as well talk about it here. You don't get any type of superpowers in this world. Well, at least what uh what Spider-Man is, slightly different is more so like a mystical means which you can slightly get away with, but by and large, certain characters in the Noir universe, you're treated. If you remember the movie Mystery Men, or better yet, uh, it's kind of like you're treating certain characters that should have powers, but treating them more so in a universe of like M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, where it's just extraordinary enough to be uh, real for real world purposes. And I think that's how they're playing it. Because Jean Grey's skill being able to get information from people that, basically conning people out of information they otherwise, or at least reading people in a sense. It's like you're reading people, like, like a very expert level of a profiler, where certain movements or gestures, they don't even really half the time have to say anything, or she can read between the lines or something like that in order to be able to read people, and that's what make her exceptional. And uh, I kind of wish they kind of really put. I like the whole thing where it's like, no, there is really not that many superpowers, but the characters in this world should be like, like the world of Unbreakable, where they just barely push that line, but not cross it. You know. Uh, and I kind of like it for that, but I kind of wish they kind of really lean into it, because you can't tell how fast Pietro is in this universe. You just see him run upstairs, and they just say like, "Oh, he's really fast." I kind of wish they, you know, illustrate that a little bit better. I don't need him like running like hypersonic speeds or anything like that, like he typically would be in the mainline universe. But I just kind of wish they need to just like, I don't know, do some type of like lines or something like that, where it's like you see him like moving in a way, or people slowing down, where he's like, I don't know, something that shows exceptional speed, like maybe Usain Bolt level of speed in this world, something like that, like absurd speed, but still not too far off of breaking, that won't break reality. Uh, so he runs away. Uh, and, and dashing any hopes Magnus has about working with his son, uh, and joining his brotherhood, because he wants, you know, these exceptional people in his brotherhood to really kind of like build like a group himself. Not too far off from how Magneto would. Which, by the way, I kind of want something with this version of Magneto to. I guess he has this whole thing with his badge and his shield with the metal, but I don't know. I kind of wish they do something with metal with him. I don't need him to move anything, or better yet, there is a real world situation. There's a thing years ago that Stan Lee was making this show. It didn't last long, where he traveled around the world. I forgot what it was called. He traveled around the world finding these people with, like real life X-Men type of thing, or real life superheroes, uh, where it's like certain people able to do extraordinary things that other people wouldn't be able to do. Like there's one person, I don't know if it was in India or something, I can't remember. It's been years ago, where he's able to magnetize metal on his body. Uh, and there was this one person who's able to survive in like the coldness of the Arctic waters long for extremely long time uh, uh, than anybody else. And I kind of want something like that with Eric here, where he's able to like maybe just magnetize metal to him or something like that to make it work for him. I don't want him to be able to levitate or you know you know uh, lift buildings or anything like that with his powers, but be able to like, at least barely levitate you know little pieces of metal and like send them flying like like bullets in a way, or at least less than the speed, like half the speed of a bullet or something like that. Something where it's like okay, that will probably not too crazy, or like I said, maybe just magnetize to his body. Like you see him pick up his badge and just lifts off the ground to, or lifts off the table to his hand. Uh, Something like that. Nothing too crazy, but still like extraordinary. That's a kind of wish they would have leaned into. They just, for the most part, people. Which matter of fact, if they would have redo something like with the Noir universe, like build that universe again, or at least further out or expand on it or something like that, or update it, whatever. They should treat that universe like something like M Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable World, where they push that boundary of extraordinary people just barely crossing the 616 universe territory. You know what I mean? Just realistic enough where you buy it. Like somebody's skin tough enough to stop bullets. Yeah, in this world, you can probably buy it. So you can still get your superheroes, but they're still fallible because they're relatively still human. The only exception maybe would be something like Captain America, Spider-Man, and Black Panther in this world, because you can still buy something like a heart-shaped herb giving him, superhuman athletic abilities, or like a super soldier serum giving them athletic, superhuman athletic abilities, or something like that. You can buy it. So we find uh, Tommy Holloway, who's in this world the Angel, slipping through the Xavier's Wayward School and digging up information about Anna Marie. And that's where he gets jumped by Scott Summers, Beast, Hank McCoy, and Iceman. And who's Iceman here seems, less jokey and more kind of like sociopathic in a way. He's like eager to like just gut somebody with his ice pick. He got an ice pick. That's his little signature thing. Like I said, I love the only pop of color that I would have really approve of is still keeping Cyclops's uh, ruby quartz shades. I don't think they're ruby quartz, but just the red tinted glasses. And Beast seems a little bit more akin to what we know him from the first few X-Men comics, where he has like overly large feet and hands. And their danger room was pretty much like a large, gymnasium with like a boxing ring and weights and other stuff just to keep their skills, hone their skills. Cyclops here is just an exceptional sharpshooter. And at a moment where he takes off his glasses, he has one red glass eye with an X mark on it to really make him like a Cyclops, which is really dope. Uh, so they jump him thinking like, oh, he's probably working for Magnus or something. Not the case, obviously. Uh, we then meet back up with Magnus, who's talking with Sebastian Shaw at the Hellfire Club. I like the nice touch with the 666 on the building, where like there's other numbers, but they're the lights are broken, so it's only reading 666, and they just ran with it. Don't bother to fix it. It's kind of funny. And I keep wanting to say Parks and Rec, but it's Parks and Parkway, I think, that the mayor appointed him as. So now he's pretty much running a section of the city where he had enough power to pull strings to get Magnus in the position that he's in. But now, because he's from Wanagore, coming off the shores to Liberty Island with his twin children. So he, worked to beat as a police officer, and eventually got, you know, caught Shaw's eye, and essentially Shaw is pretty much a gangster, a made man kind of situation. But not like a typical gangster. He's a crooked politician essentially, and Saw's certain operations are being, you know, messed up by the X-Men. He wants Magnus to like, I want you to find these guys. I want you to stop them because they're ruining my business. Because you're apparently not grateful enough. Because I put you in this power. You were nothing when you came on these shores with your kids. So I need you to hold up your end and do what I say, kind of thing. Typical stuff. Uh, Holloway takes three X-Men to his HQ, essentially his lair, which is like a former abandoned prison where essentially he kind of grew up in, because his father was the warden here at that time before he passed away. And he just asked them, okay, where were you guys on the night Jean died? And they explained to him they were casing one of Shaw's businesses while she was getting information on the inside. And so, clearly they essentially have alibis. They couldn't be in two places at once. So, they decide to listen to a film reel or recording of Xavier's account of Anna Marie, because she used to be part of the team before she just left, or at least Xavier kind of sent her away. And she had an extraordinary gift, because Rogue, she able to, upon touch, gain abilities of and memories and stuff like that, personalities of whomever she touches. Here, you kind of get that, but it's more so like by osmosis she does this, where she, because she, was an orphan, she was a delinquent. Her lawyer was Raven Darkholme, and she brought him to, she brought her to Xavier to hopefully, because at the time nobody knew what Xavier was really doing. They thought like, oh, he's rehabilitating these kids, not knowing what he was really training them to do. So Darkholme takes her to Xavier, hopefully to be treated. And that's where Xavier finds out her unique gift, where she's almost like a blank slate in a way. But she's able to mimic the kind of like a personality traits of whomever she's around long enough. Like, Warren Worthington the third, he's kind of has like a flight of fancy and skill as an artist, and she's able to expertly do the the exact same thing and behave the exact same way, or when she's around Hank McCoy, she's able to speak in, you know, very high intellectual words the same way he's able to do. But, you know, that's where you get into the, the psychopathy thing, where even to Xavier it seems, oh wow, she might be like a true danger, but you're building these delinquents who have issues. You don't think at one point you might come across a person that really is a problem, but that's partially why he sent her away. Uh, we see then Magnus then, who's trying to find Marie, who's, apparently, like, you know the linchpin in all of this, because that's where Shaw expects Magnus to find this woman and find the X-Men and stop all this stuff. Uh, so is Magneto who's still friends with Xavier here, and sees that, oh, I this is my friend, I have to bring him in, but it doesn't mean I have to put him in like a poor situation. He pulled strings to get Xavier a cushy desk job as a receptionist at Rikers Island. So he asked, like, okay, it's time for you to return the favor. Won't you tell me something about information about this guy named Eunice, known like Eunice the Untouchable, who uh, uh, who people like are referring to. He's part of this. Trying to remember like how he's a part of it. He just had like info on Shaw, so it's like you gotta like take him off the board. Like he doesn't want to, like, essentially like a rival to uh, or a potential threat to Shaw's business. And he pretty much like under possible threat for his children, like like because the only difference these two have is the fact that he wanted to work with Xavier to have his exceptional children merge with his brotherhood to pretty much build like essentially a massive gang themselves of exceptional people that can do exceptional things, and pretty much, you know, establish like a foothold in the city. But Xavier didn't want his team to be used like that, because he's more so just want to like hone their skills and study about their, the evolution of psychopathy. And he's not a gangster. He's not like in it for power or personal gain kind of situation. Uh, but uh, Magnus, needs information. Otherwise, like, hey, one way or another, uh, either they join me, or I can easily have them killed when I find them. But if you don't want that to happen, I need some information. Give me something, uh, uh, so that won't happen. Now, we eventually, everything comes to a head where uh, Angel with the X-Men find Marie at this building at the same time as Xavier kind of spill the beans on the last known whereabouts where Anna Marie would be, is this kind of, penthouse hotel. And you see like a little bit of flashback with Holloway as a kid, where he met up with these kind of inmates that, because you see that Holloway as a kid spark up like a friendship with some of the inmates, where like one of them being Sean Cassidy, Banshee, who essentially kind of like, ran the prison and had some kind of deal with the warden or something like that was going on, where as at a certain point the warden wasn't really running things, it was more so Cassidy. And that's where like a young Holloway uh, meets certain members in this prison. One of them being Kane Marco, who essentially was teaching. And a lot of these inmates was teaching like this young boy essentially like very Batman kind of thing, where he learns different skills from these inmates, where he can be an effective vigilante in the future. Essentially, it's kind of dope. And Kane Marco is pretty much teaching like even when the odds I guess stacked against you, or you're dealing with somebody who might be a little tough, you power through that kind of situation. I guess Kane Marco here is kind of like a strong man of this world. He doesn't have no crimson band of the crimson gem of Sidorak. Well, he's just like a really big and tough guy. Lord knows what they had to do to bring him in or capture him. So as one of the cops, I think Fred Dukes, let off a shot and went into Holloway's abdomen, he just powered through that to take down those cops while rescuing Anna Marie. And that's where he takes her to uh, a safe house essentially, that so that he can question her about what happened at the Xavier school. Like, and she says like, "Hey, I don't see no difference between like him or Xavier and their little pissing contest between one another. Like, you know, like I wanted to be on my own, want to be free from all that stuff because it's all like essentially a headache." Let's make sure I got this. Uh, so you kind of forged because after Angel, the Warring Worthington the third, you know, uh, well, the paper said he committed suicide, but it was all fabricated. Everybody, the X-Men, knew it was fabricated, so the Brotherhood know it was like fabrication on by the police officer's part. But somebody actually killed him. But is the only reason why that led to Xavier's capture, because it was like a big scandal. Uh, but uh, after he died, you know, Warren's parents decide to like up and leave to France, and so she forged his mom's signature really well in order to be able to pretend like, oh, I'm a cousin of Warren, so that way she can live in a decent luxury. Don't know how she's managed to like pay all that crap off, but I guess you know, uh, it's just kind of like, okay, this uh, they never really fully explain how you made to afford living here. Sure, you can say like, or you can be able to force some paperwork to say like, oh, my son's cousins or my niece is living uh, in this penthouse, but it still had to be paid off once a month. And now, of course, during the 1930s, I'm not sure. Like, matter of fact, let's look this up. This is like a fun little experiment here. All right, New York apartment penthouses. Okay. All right, during the Roaring Twenties. All right, or the 30s, I should say. All right. Well, it was 1937 in this comic, but in the 30s, it was during the whole Great Depression situation. Rent once a month was $45. Wow. Can you imagine? Man, the 20s was man the prices on things during like the 1910s going as far as like maybe like up until like hell to like the 70s, whereas fairly affordable. It didn't really hike up until like the 80s. Uh During a whole another stock market crash, Black Monday as they call it. So it's like uh during the 30s it was $45 a month, 40s $50 a month, 50s $60 a month, uh 60s 200 a month, and the 70s it was 335 a month at that time. But then it didn't get into the crazy prices until like the 80s, where it's like 1,700 a month, and then in the 90s it was like 3,200 a month. So, yikes! But man, that would have been crazy. But of course, unless you're white, uh, you wouldn't be able to be allowed in places like that for a while. At least not until like maybe like you know halfway in the later 60s and again into the 70s, when certain black folk were you know quote unquote allowed, or people of color in general are allowed to live in spots like that. For example, George Jefferson. uh Hold on for intermission, brief intermission. I'll be right back, guys. Sorry about that. So anyway, when because they kind of flip flopping around a little bit because the passage of time is a little off here and there. Where now we go back to Pietro coming home after running away from his father. It's like his father already went to go see Shaw and Xavier, and he's just now coming home. Like I said, like the passage of time is kind of wonky. I'm just gonna just uh, suspend my disbelief and just tell my brain like, hey, maybe it's running parallel with what's going on, whatever. But Pietro comes home and finds out that Wanda has been beaten by Remy because he didn't like the fact that his girl was like messing around with Holloway. Uh, so he's like teaching her a lesson, and so this compounds the problem mentally with Pietro, where it's like not only he finds out his father is like a crooked police, also that one already knew this, but I guess because since he was off at school, and in university and everything like that, she was already home and you know living like a bit of a luxury, but also was privy to all of this, so she was already used to everything and taking full advantage. Uh, so she already got that shock to the system and used to it. He's just now catching up. No pun intended. So now his father's crooked. His uh and now his sister that he was always looked after is being assaulted by a club owner. So this kind of sends him off the rails. Not too dissimilar to like the real world where people messing with anybody messing with Wanda, Pietro will go off the freaking rails. Uh, Getting information from Anna Marie uh, about a contact Jean was, having with this uh, boatman who turns out to be Wolverine, which is really dope. Uh, uh, where she, kind of gets like info and other goods from him because he's boatman. He gets paid for helping travelers or getting some kind of goods, sending them to a particular port. Uh, so Scott goes to meet up, meet up with this dude in Chinatown at this bar, because Wolverine always be found at a bar, and he has claws, but it's more so like a weapon tool, whereas it called the Japanese Nico is used for like I think gutting fish or something like that. That's it. Japanese. Might be misspelling it maybe. Yeah, I might be misspelling it because I'm not getting like the right uh thing. It's like a hand grip thing that you put your fingers through, and the blades come in between your fingers. But in any case, uh, oh, I can just look it up. Oh, looks like did like Wolverine Noir. We need to put a lot more energy into the Noir universe. I don't think many people really do much with them. Uh, God, I was kind of hoping they tell me what his freaking tools are. They said it uh, in the comic. Yeah. Well, he in his universe he's a bootlegger. Uh, Whatever. It's fine. Kind of say it. Have that here at the ready. But anyway, so these are the tools seemingly used to mutilate Jean, which put him in Scott's sight. So a fight ensues in his bar, where Angel comes dropping in, knocking out Wolverine. Like he tells like Scott, like you're supposed to have been waiting for me outside, but excuse me, Scott was like, "F that noise! I don't take orders from you." So he knocks out Scott, and finally, as Wolverine's waking up, he asks, "Okay, what, what's going on?" And Logan points out, "Oh, you're gonna accuse me too, like about like what happened to Jean? Clearly, he had like a thing for Jean." Um, and Holloway, being an expert detective himself, where it's like, you know, a boatman who knows the waters like the back of his hand wouldn't be stupid enough to leave a body in a particular ocean. They call it Hell's Gate or something like that, to be washed out where anybody can just easily find it. So you wouldn't be that dumb. So no, you wouldn't have been the one to do it because you know if you did, you didn't want to be caught, you wouldn't leave it so obvious. In this particular case, uh, or at least you wouldn't be so crude about it, or half-assed about it. So he takes Scott and they leave, but uh, he tells Logan like, "I'm gonna call you in for a favor, because now that you owe me from keeping Scott from murdering you." Because here he doesn't have like a healing factor. But once again, just like in like Unbreakable universe, there should be some minor healing factor, not like some crazy like he usually have, where he just repairs everything really fast. But it should show quicker than average healing, where instead of like healing rapidly, it's like, oh, he takes a couple of gut shot wounds, and then maybe after, hopefully, like he is patched up a bit, or maybe like well, for the sake of the argument, it's like let's say he takes a couple of gut shot wounds, and he makes it out, and then by the next day, uh, he heals. It takes like maybe like depending on the level, the severity of the damage, he can heal by a day or two. Faster than average. Nothing too crazy. Like if you get his arm lopped off in his universe, that's it. There's no growing that back. But I'm just saying, like superficial wounds or something like that, or cuts. They get mended on their own by the next day. Or if he's patched up, maybe half of the day, something like that. I'm just spitballing here, but you can like push the line with the abilities in this universe just a wee bit. Then you see Pietro strolling right through the Creole Club, coming face to face with Remy, and then just point blank shoots him in the face. And then all the security, Bishop and everybody, drags him out. Oh, by the way, I mentioned something about Eunice. Eunice in the main 616 universe is Gunther Bane. Like he is a mutant. Because he can generate a invisible psionic field around himself, deflect and stop objects or projectiles. So that's why he's called the Untouchable in the Noir universe. And they really like because he's not utilized much in the main 616 universe. Like he had like a moment during M Day as well. Uh and like a slight moment during the Krokora period. But uh so it's like it's funny, you really like, kudos to the writers here. Which by the way, it's Fred Van Lente. I completely forgot bringing up his name because usually I make a point to make sure to bring up some writers' names during my comic book reviews. Fred Van Lente and artist Dennis Calero. And kudos to the writers who did some deep cut with Eunice. It's like making him like a like a legit gangster here in this universe. But pulling references from places that even like the most hardcore Marvel fan of today would not be able to automatically pick out Eunice. Who the hell is Eunice? And it's like very, niche or like barely used character in the Marvel universe. So now they taken Pietro into custody. So you get a little bit more of like a backstory with Calloway and how Sean Cassidy got caught by Magnus because Eric goes to meet up with his son in prison, and after after Pietro got what he need off his chest about how like messed up things are, because like I went to the academy and people were already giving me grief because how fast I rose up into the ranks. I could see why and everything like that. And now that on top of that you're crooked and things like that. And of course Eric's like, boy, you don't know shit. You think like you have it hard. I was on the beat for near like 15, somewhere between 15 and 20 years or something like that, as a beat cop. But and they kept me there on purpose because of where I came from. And so I didn't get my big break because they had to give me some kind of promotion. How wildly I managed to stop this, corruption going on in this old prison, where it turns out young Holloway, because Cassidy, managed to get a foothold as a top gangster at the time because he used carrier pigeons to send messages to people and get tip-offs about certain raids and everything like that. He always manages to slip through the cops' fingers. It wasn't until because of young Holloway uh, poison, used rat poison on Cassidy's pigeons. So now, uh, Cassie, he got caught. One of his raids, didn't get a tip off, get caught. They ratted him out. So now they bring it into the prison system, the prison, uh, uh, and Eric is leading the charge. He's running upstairs. He finds, Cassie on the roof, seeing, his son, or not his son, but like the warden's son with the box of rat poison. And it's like, what have you done? Eric bursts through, and without even saying like you're under arrest or anything like that, he just point blank shoots him. To end like Cassie's little organization once for all. But then the warden who was allowing this to carry on, who's essentially a co-conspirator, while he was, because I guess I don't know if he got hurt or something like that, but he was in like the hospital, but nobody bothered to check up on him or make sure he's handcuffed to the bed or anything like that. He took a couple of scalpels, ended his life. So now leaves Holloway an orphan. So the situation got so big where now that the press got wind of it, he was, Shaw had to make sure either Shaw or the mayor, and more likely the mayor, where like, oh, you got to promote this guy, make him chief of detectives. So now, Shaw took the opportunity to put Magnus in his back pocket in order to facilitate certain moves. But Eric explains to his son, because of the position I'm in, I can send you overseas to escape any kind of repercussions, either that you'll either get in prison or out in the streets. You can't be in New York anymore. Hell, you can't even be in the States anymore. So Pietro is like, I want to go back to our homeland. I want to go back to Wondergore. So Eric's like, fine, we'll organize it. Lo and behold, Scott was like eavesdropping in undercover. And this is where the talking about like the whole popping of the colors is like gone too far. Where it's like, I don't dig it because I like to keep the black and white aesthetic. But but Eric figures that, okay, Eunice is also on this aircraft, intending to leave the States. He needs to get him. So he facilitated a ticket for his son to be on the same aircraft, where you're going to do something for Shaw in order to get this little free passage out of here. So Remy won't have any goons coming after him because he'll be leaving the country. But you need to do this favor for Shaw to take out his enemy. So he positioned Pietro to be on the same plane. Angel, who doesn't have wings, but he has this kind of cape situation. He kind of looks like somebody from uh, crap, what's that movie? Zack Snyder movie. Um, Crap. What is that? Watchmen. Yeah, there. Watchmen. It kind of looks like somebody from Watchmen in a way, which I guess makes sense given this kind of world where it doesn't have that many superpowered characters. So he uses cape to glide more so than fly. So he, the plane is just high enough to allow him to come off on a building to glide into and stop Pietro from assassinating Eunice. So they on this kind of like blimp situation, air pyro. It's pyro, but they added an R to it. But the the shootout occurs, and of course, he's a little fast for Angel to land a hit on him, but the gunshots hit the dirigible, so it started going down. Hey, Kenneth, what's up, man? So the blimp starts going down. It's almost like the one of the earliest catastrophes in American history, where it was caught on film, where like a blimp was going down. The Hindenburg situation, where he was like, "Oh, the humanity!" And that kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of something like that. You watch that old film reel online, where the first major catastrophe recorded on film in American history is one of that. So when you get around to it, it looks exactly like that. So I think that's the illustrator's point. They want to match that level of catastrophe. But the Angel managed to get Eunice out of there, and he uh, you know glides into the nearest building as the whole entire blimp was coming down, and unfortunately, Pietro's body fell out and landed on top of Eric's car right in front of him, and it's like now he got a dead son. So now he snaps. All bets are off at this point. So it uh he is like, you know, cutting all loose ends. He had it up to here with the BS with the system at this point. He lost a kid at this point. He lost too many things and gone through too much at this point. So it's typical in Magneto fashion. Magneto was right in Magneto kind of situation. So he goes to Shaw's place as he's having, in the Hellfire Club, he's having this little sex party kind of thing with, a threesome with these chicks. So he doesn't even care. He pulls out a Tommy gun and starts blasting, and now he's like I gotta go find Eunice and the X-Men and take care of them. So he finds Anna Marie, who's trying to leave, but she gets busted, and with the gun pointed at her, he tells her, like, I don't want to have to kill you, but I will if I have to. Take me to Holloway. Once he pieced together who Holloway was, and he was that little boy from that prison, and he's been this vigilante. And by the way, during this ensuing rescue mission of Eunice, Beast ends up getting caught in a crossfire as like the police trying to, once Eric pieced together who Holloway was, he sends Dukes and this other guy, I don't know who it was. I guess supposed to be like Toad, I guess, runs up the building, and in the ensuing fight, Beast telling Iceman to take Eunice, get him out of here, get to the car with Cyclops. But then like he stayed behind, he gets shot. Beast is down, he's dead. And then here, as Anna Marie bites Eric and shouts out a warning to Tommy, and she gets away, but uh, Eunice ends up getting shot, and so does Eric's men, but not before Iceman gets taken out too. In the back. Uh, so at this point, only Cyclops is left. Uh, as Eric's trying to chase after her, she sneaks up behind him and hits him with, beats him essentially with some kind of like, look like a cricket bat or something like that, but it's like this long, you know, flat wooden thing. It just beats him to death. uh, and pretty much like taking on his rage and personality kind of thing. That's where Angel shows up, pretty much solving the mystery once he starts putting like the evidence together. Because at a certain point, I don't know who it was, but somebody dug up and expected the body of Jean Grey, which was starting to decompose. But I'm shocked that he didn't think to like inspect the body while it was at the morgue before they buried it. I think reading enough, Batman comics and playing up Batman games, or even watching a lot of detective shows and movies, that would probably been like one of the first things you would do as a detective is exhume the body to see if you can find any particular evidence to help with your case. Then he pieced together that the body that washed up on the shore wasn't Jean Grey. It was the real Anna Marie Rogue. And it turns out the Rogue that we've been following along with was actually Jean Grey. Because they recall, at least Holloway recited the lines that about psychopaths that Xavier pointed out earlier in the run, where it's like how it evolves and how it shapes and stuff like that, and what it can possibly lead to. Uh, it turns out that Jean was like a real sociopath, like to the extreme. I guess this is supposed to be her Dark Phoenix type of situation, which kind of fits given the fact that who Phoenix tends to do to Jean in the typical comic, and causing murder and devastation. She used a tool that Logan typically uses to uh, cut her up, redo her body to make her appear to look like Jean, and send it to the waters. And she takes up the appearance of Anna Marie in order to be able to hopefully get out of the situation and move on. But she needs some kind of like a scapegoat in order to get out of there. So he points out how like he finds this paper where like he asks who constantly tries to practice their handwriting of their name over and over again. Clearly, you are trying to mimic the same handwriting style as Rogue. So clearly, this is Jean. Jean killed Rogue and dressed her up to be like hers in order to be able to, escape essentially. So she orchestrated this whole entire mess and caused the death of not only her teammates but so many others in this craziness. Because she doesn't like have an identity of her own kind of situation, the Rogue. So it was easy for Jean to use her in order to kind of, because she's able to read people. It's like, oh, she's an easy patsy. I can just take her place because who will question? She has no body to, no parents or anything like that. So I can easily take her place. So just to get out of here. So it also turns out that Holloway had a little secret, because there's been moments in this run where people comment like how quickly that Holloway as the angel shows up in certain places where he was just somewhere else. Turns out that the warden didn't have just one son, he had two sons. And they both grew up to be the same vigilante to kind of throw people off. So the one although one had like a mustache and one had no mustache. The one with no mustache is the one who was fooling around with Rogue in the first place, or Jean. Uh, uh, so he tries to like stop her. She shoots him, but he grabs a hold of her, and then he takes her, across off the building, and they both land and die. So yeah, she is just like she's a full blown sociopath. She has no feelings or regard for anybody's life. Uh, she even fooled like Raven Darkholme. Uh, or not full. Like I misspoke. She even like utilize the information that they know about Rogue in order to help facilitate this scheme. So even claw use Wolverine's claws tools to like at least bought some pair in order to pretty much throw everybody off. Even like her little lover, she was willing to frame in order to throw the cops off or anybody who might be snooping around. She didn't take it in the account of this vigilante. So they, he dive bombs off the building with her, and she ends up uh, dying. Was this situation where so that's where Cyclops and the other Holloway kid leave as the case is done. Like Shaw's dead, Magneto's dead, Beast and Iceman are dead, Fred Dukes and Toad are dead, Jean is dead, Rogue is dead. They're the only kind of X-Men left. So they get on the Wolverine's boat heading towards Madripoor. They got nothing left here in New York. And there is like another volume of X-Men Noir, which is like the title is like The Mark of Cain, which I'm assuming have something to do with Cain Marko, the Juggernaut, or at least this universe's world of the Juggernaut. But maybe at some point in the future, I'll check out that story and do a review. But that's pretty much X-Men Noir. I like it. Like I just didn't care for them like utilizing too much color in certain instances in the final issue because it kind of took me out a little bit. Kind of wish they was a little bit more linear with the narrative, and well, I like Christopher Nolan's stories because he does mess with with the linear of time a little bit. It's fine in certain cases, but in the end, it has to be able to like you can be able to roll it back a little bit and understand what's going on. Well, after a few reads or a few watches of certain stuff, you can understand better after instead of the first time around. But I don't know. It's just the way it has to make sense as you're reading along in a way when you're doing like these detective kind of stories. The people should be able to piece together the clues because in certain Batman comics, you're able to help follow along with Batman and piecing together the clues in order to, like, at least at the same time, if not sooner. Well, sometimes kind of best to be trying to get it at the same time as your lead character detective in order to like, oh, I know who the killer is, kind of thing. They didn't do a very good job with like gathering, particular evidence. You see it, but I don't know. Maybe like the writer, wasn't much of a detective writer. You don't need to be a detective type of writer, but there's so many other writers who be able to utilize the detective narrative in order to put in place certain clues, so that way the reader can follow along and start piecing together the mystery along with your lead character. You see that many times with like Knives Out or Murder on the Orient Express films, or even like the novel they're based on, or at least Agatha Christie kind of stuff. That's just my take on it. They could have done a little bit better with, laying out the pieces of evidence and putting together, being a little bit lenient with the story, uh, but and kept like the black and white aesthetic all the way through. But maybe I enjoyed it because of the atmosphere of it and seeing these characters that we're familiar with in a setting in an entirely new universe. Uh, I didn't hate the story, but it should have been a little bit more linear. But anyway, that was X-Men Noir. Uh, in a little bit, I'll be getting into my review of Guardians of the Galaxy to wrap off Mother's Day month, and then get into the Father's Day movie review month in the following week and get into June. So I got like a good handful of stuff, very, either dead centered or very like, guy's guide type of films. So look forward to that. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Highly recommend you guys just check out some, maybe not X-Men Noir, but I still recommend checking it out. But get into some noir, Marvel Noir kind of stories and checking them out because they're really fun. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care. Otherwise, have a good night. Peace.